Hi, my name's Lily and welcome to Small Talk. Happy New Year and Happy New Apocalypse. Things have been going down in 2020 already. We see Australia burning and we've all been seeing memes of World War III. Things in my own life have not exactly been all rosy either. But let's get into it. So I'm going to be focusing on US and Iran today. There's a lot been going on. So let's talk about who exactly was killed. His name's Qasem Soleimani. He was assassinated by a US drone strike. He's the Iranian general of the Quds Force. So the Quds Force are the international military force of Iran. Now, that explains why he was killed in Iraq, because he is responsible for the last decade or so building up Iranian-backed militias in the Middle East region. So that's from Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Now, he's been on the American sites for years. He is revered or loathed in the region. He is credited with masterminding the turnaround in Syria and helping Bashar al-Assad take back towns from rebels. He's also been credited with being a major force in destroying ISIS in the region. But his enemies would call him a cold-blooded killer responsible for the lives of innocent people. And the Americans hold him responsible for antagonism for almost 20 years. He is someone who's been a thorn in their side. He has been in the sights of George W. Bush. He's been in the sights of Obama. So why now has it become such a big problem? Well, essentially, the Iranians are seen as responsible for multiple proxy wars in the region. Now, what is a proxy war? A proxy war is when a big power engages or sort of starts a war whilst not actually being directly involved. They will arm local militias to fight the war, and it sort of serves their interests with minimum damage to them. Now, the Iranians, with Soleimani masterminding it, have been seen as responsible as being on the other side of multiple proxy wars that the US are also fighting. So again, coming to why now. Things had got a little bit better. Between 2013 and 2016, there had been a warming of relations, or at least a thawing of the cold conflict and low-level conflict that had been happening between the two sides. Obama was able to bring Iran to the table because there have been fears that Iran was developing nuclear capabilities. They insist that it was for peaceful reasons, but the international community doesn't really believe them. So they were brought to the table in 2015. A nuclear deal was signed, which meant that if they stopped enriching uranium and moving ballistic missiles all over the place, they would have sanctions dropped and trade could resume. They'd be able to sell their oil abroad, blah, 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 everybody's happy. This did actually lead to some positive results. However, with Trump's election and his kind of, unhealthy obsession with his predecessor's legacy, this deal was dubbed very descriptively as a bad deal. And he had it in his sights, just like much of Obama's previous work. So in 2018, the US decided to unilaterally withdraw from the deal, saying that Iran was not keeping to its sides of the commitments. Other member states of this deal, they disagreed. They thought that things had been going well and they tried to bypass the US sanctions and continue helping Iran stay at the table. Now, Iran responded by thinking that this was just bullying and antagonism on the behalf of the US, and they increased their antagonistic activities once again in the Middle East, which hadn't exactly subsided, but it became a lot more out in the open. We have then seen in the last year a flurry of activity. I mean, and this hasn't really drawn a response from Trump. He is true to his word in the fact that he is not really wanting to engage in wars in the Middle East. He's not interested. America first. And he has been reluctant to get American lives involved. The one case when he does seem to act is actually if American lives are at risk. that is something that does seem to prompt him to act. But for example, there are attacks on American allies, the Saudi Arabian oil refineries, which was largely accredited to Iran, and there was a muted response. Okay, not on Twitter, but in reality, really there was very little. Ramping up of economic sanctions, maybe a couple of Iranian-backed militias in other territories hit by missiles or drones, but not exactly anything with real teeth. That's key. Teeth. So the deterrence of the American threat and influence in the region was clearly waning. People could see that Trump and the US didn't have an appetite really to get involved anymore. Israel and Saudi Arabia were becoming more tetchy and nervous that the American deterrence had lost its teeth, possibly pressuring behind the scenes. So now let's take a look at then why now. So what's happened in the last month or so is that there were more hits and an American subcontractor was killed in Iraq. Now, Trump responded again just with a drone strike on Iranian Shia-led militias because he thought that taking out Soleimani would be a disproportionate response, because essentially it would. He's a top general, well, the top general in Iran, and second, some people say, to the supreme leader. So we know that on the 28th of December, Donald Trump withheld from ordering a hit on Soleimani. However, the response to those missile attacks on Shia-led militias was the storming of the Iraqi Embassy. Now, this seems to have been pivotal. Apparently, it was a horrible reminder of the 1979 hostage crisis. You can see a very good Ben Affleck film on that. And it also reminded of the Benghazi crisis in the Obama years. Apparently it was too much humiliation for Trump and the US, and on Thursday the hit was ordered, much to the surprise of his allies. And as we know, Congress as well was not informed. So this was very sudden. Now, what's happened since? Of course, Iran has threatened to retaliate, which they will. However, when we talk about World War III, it's dangerous. None of the big other powers are involved. Russia and China are not involved. And also, it makes it seem like these two countries would go into direct confrontation, and that doesn't look likely yet. Iran knows it cannot take on the military force of America heads on. Iran will take a leaf out of the book of the late General Soleimani, which is, instead of going face on, go through the window. All of these militias that he has equipped throughout the region, like I said, from Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria, these are all ready to sort of be on the front line, antagonizing American, hitting sort of their bases. There is going to be a sort of sideways war rather than anything being direct. We're going to see an escalation, but it's not, again, going to be directly between the two, and that's really important to emphasize. This means that now the Americans are looking at where they're weakest in the region, and they're going to bolster those defenses. They have sent a further 3,000 troops to the region, which shows that they are nervy about what's going to happen next. In the days since Soleimani was killed on Friday, Iraq, furious that their territory has been used to carry out an assassination, have expelled 5,000 US troops stationed there, mostly in an advisory role, but they have been expelled, and the US is no longer allowed to use its airspace. This is huge, but also plays into Trump's favor because he doesn't want to be there. He took his troops out of Syria, well, and then left some behind, but this is something that he wants, withdrawal from the Middle East. So it kind of plays into it there. We have seen Trump talk about retaliating to the Iranians' next retaliation with 52 sites. He's going to hit 52 sites, including cultural ones. That seems to be another declaration of war crime on Twitter from President Donald Trump there. The biggest part is that as of last night, the Iranian parliament has decided to withdraw from the nuclear deal. So that's it. It's over. It's dead in the gutter. And that means that they are going to start enriching uranium. Now, this is a power move to show how serious they are. And it's also to show the international community that they better talk to the Americans, because Iran is pissed. It's beyond pissed. It's been absolutely fatally wounded with the fact that one of their most important generals has been killed, and the country is in mourning. Now, what next? As I said, Iran is going to be looking at sideways to get back at the Americans. Trump is talking about how it will be fire and fury, but really we know by now that he does not like to get into military conflicts. And the international community are going to be working hard in the back channels to try to restore the key parts of that nuclear deal and get a de-escalation. So what I would like us to remember is that in international relations, it's really hard. There is no good guy, bad guy. It doesn't go down in those sort of terms. The thing to remember is civilians are involved. And to be honest, we should be thinking of Iranian civilians. They are on the front line of this. And no matter anyone's disagreements with regimes, there are innocent lives involved. And their daily life has just got a little bit more dangerous, possibly. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. And I hope you have a lovely week. And to anybody who's watching in Spain, Feliz Reyes. Tra, tra.